right. Welcome, everyone. We'll let folks trickle on in here in just the next moment or two. Thank you for joining us today. All right. Well, welcome everyone to session 2. Some of you may have attended yesterday's session 1, but we're happy to have folks who were here yesterday, new folks joining us for the Data Leadership Training Series. Here in session 2, we were talking about creating conditions for data-driven decision-making. And I'm Julie Webb. I'm a program manager here at WestEd, and I'm happy to welcome you today. In this session, we're going to focus on the conditions and kind of different key tools and things for supporting decision-making using data with different interest holders. So there's going to be some great tools shared today. So we're really happy that you're here. First, we're going to go over a few housekeeping items. We're going to be using the chat feature today when your facilitators prompt you to do so. We're going to be doing some reflections and sharing. We're not going to be using the chat feature to ask questions of the facilitators because we actually have another strategy for that. And we're going to be showing you that in just a moment. We want to make sure that you get the information you need. And so we have a different strategy. But in case you need to use the chat today when prompted, you're going to select the chat icon that's located in your toolbar in Zoom. And this will provide the chat window that should pop up to the right side of your screen. And so we want to make sure that that's open for you. And we'll be turning that chat feature on and off throughout the presentation today. And we're going to be using a Padlet today as a launch pad to access the many resources that we have. And we have a materials link and, again, a place to ask and answer questions. We're going to also be doing some activities together today in the Padlet. And we've dropped the link to the Padlet for today's session in the chat for you. So we'll be doing that throughout the presentation as well. So you're going to want to go ahead and open up that Padlet. And we're going to be working in the background throughout the session today, our team here at WestEd and ETS and CDE to be answering those questions for you that come up during the presentation. So we're actually going to pan over to the Padlet right now. Here it is on the screen. We want to show you how to use this, the features that we have here. At the top, we have the session 2 and the title, so you'll know you're in the right place. And the Padlet is organized into columns from left to right, and each column is labeled with a heading. And there's a scroll bar at the bottom that you can use in order to access all the panels all the way across, all those different columns. So just to make sure that you know there's a lot of columns there. When we scroll back to the front, we'll just talk about a couple of columns here. The first column has some meeting information for you, materials link to some of the resources today. We have some other information, maybe follow-up information that might be helpful for you, as well as the link to the survey that we'll be asking you to take at the end of the session today. And then in the second column, we have a place for if you're having any technical difficulties during the webinar, something's giving you trouble or you're having trouble finding something, this column is a great place to ask those types of questions. And in order to ask a question, what you need to do is take your cursor and go to the correct column based on the content or the topic. And if you hover over the little plus sign at the top and click on it, a new window pops up. And then you're able to go ahead and type in what your question is. And the little publish button in the top right will pop up. And if you click on that, then the question will actually populate now in the correct column. So that helps us stay organized and help you find your way back to the questions maybe you answered while you're waiting for them to be answered. And also the columns are organized in the order of the presentation today, starting with that third column labeled section 1. So we'll be moving left to right throughout the Padlet today, interacting with it during the session. Okay. So let's go back to our slide deck here in just a moment. And I'm very pleased to introduce our training team today. First, we have joining us Evan Bartelheim, who is the Project Director 3, Accountability and Data Literacy for Los Angeles County Office of Education. Evan, are you able to come off mute and say hello real quick?
I am. Thanks. Great to be here.
Thank you, Evan. And we also have with us Joe Valero. Some of you may remember Joe presented for us yesterday for session 1. He's Director of Assessments and Data for Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. Can you say hello, Joe?
Hi, everybody. Glad to see everybody here today.
Great. Thank you so much. So we're going to get to know Evan and Joe a little bit more today as we go throughout the presentation. So we want to tell you a little bit about the remainder of the Data Leadership Training Series. Here today, we're in the second of 4 professional learning sessions. And you can register for any of the upcoming sessions through the link that we've just dropped into the chat for you. Next week, we'll be doing session 3 and session 4. And even though all the sessions focus on using CAASPP and ELPAC data for system improvement, attendance for each session is not dependent upon the other session. So they're all independently organized. And so you can attend the ones that makes most sense for you or match your availability. We'll also be recording these sessions, and those will be available in a few weeks' time. We'll be posting those, and they'll be on the CAASPP and ELPAC YouTube channel in the coming weeks. So for session 1, we held that yesterday, and we were talking about using summative assessment data for understanding and improving systems. That's going to be a great recording for those of you who were in attendance. There's an awful lot of resources we share there from CDE, CAASPP, and ELPAC related resources that are going to be really valuable to know about. So we highly recommend taking a look at those resources and the recording. Today for session 2, again, creating conditions for data-driven decision-making. And next week, we'll be having session 3, using data for communication and engagement. And session 4 is a very special session. It operates more as a panel discussion, and we're learning from data leaders. We have 3 very talented and knowledgeable administrators from different LEAs across the state, and they'll be sharing some of their data practices with you during that session 4 panel. And our agenda for today's learning, we're almost finished with our welcome and housekeeping section, and then I'll be passing it off to our presenters. We're going to be focusing on effective local assessment systems, and also talking about the importance of evaluating those local assessment systems. And then we'll move into some discussion about data use practices and dive deeply into some data analysis protocols. We have a lot of great resources to share with you today that you'll be able to take with you. And then we'll have a brief wrap up, and we'll take that survey that I mentioned earlier. And our learning goals for session 2 today are that you as participants can recognize effective use of data within local assessment systems, and you understand the considerations for evaluating local assessment systems, and also that you can identify best practices for summative data analysis. You get a sense of what we're working on today. And I'll know we're successful if you're able to think about that leadership role that you have in supporting a culture of data-driven decision-making in your local context. And I'm sure that's probably one of the reasons why a lot of us are here today, is to think about that role. We're going to take our chat here for a spin and ask you folks to take a look at the question in the chat and use this chat feature. We're interested to hear from all of you about what you're really hoping to take away from today's session. So if you could answer the question, put a response in the chat to this question: what is your learning priority? We'd love to hear about the reasons why you joined today and what you're most interested in learning about. We'll give you a moment to answer that question in the chat. I know a learning priority that was really important for folks in some previous data leadership sessions was those data use protocols. And we've had some folks asking for different uses of those, and we're really excited to share some of those resources with you today. We know that that's been a really helpful tool in the field, and so hopefully you'll find a lot of helpful information there. We have a lot of folks sharing here that we want to learn how to use data to target specific skills to really identify, gaps in student learning and what can we do about that when we're looking at our summative data. Ways to evaluate data, make it more meaningful for those different partners that we have. Our educational partners are coming with different levels of knowledge and interests and priorities. And so working with them is going to be important. Thinking about how to use data in more ways, being a little more creative with data. Maybe not just CAASPP and ELPAC summative data, but other types of data that we have that we want to bring together. That's great. Someone mentions the protocols here. That's wonderful. Well, thank you. I think you're going to find a lot of great resources that Evan and Joe are going to share today that are going to be really useful to you. So thank you so much for joining us. I'm going to pass you off to Evan, where he's going to start sharing about local assessment systems.
Thank you, Julie. And I like to enjoy reading everything in the chat. And I was here yesterday because I find this whole series so useful that beyond just presenting, I just love what to hear, especially excited to get to present with my friend, the Data King, Joe. So we're going to take a quick exploration of effective local assessment systems and what those are comprised of. So to be useful and effective, local assessment systems really require data that is high quality, valid, and importantly, reliable. And this should allow leaders to make confident decisions about the programs and the initiatives that they're implementing. These data should be fit for purpose, and that means that they are used in ways that align with the assessment's intended purpose. So, for example, interim assessments are meant to show evidence of student progress within a period of instruction, and they support mid-course adjustments to your teaching and learning, but interim assessments are not intended to guide the high-stakes decisions such as like reclassification. So that's really the role of summative assessments. And finally, the assessment system data should support equitable outcomes for all students. We're going to dive into each one of these. So it's important for our assessment systems to contain and make use of high-quality data. Local assessment data can be useful for decision-making that affects individuals or groups if the data can check the boxes here. So first, it's got to be accurate. The data correctly reflects the real world. It also has to be complete. So there's all the relevant data is present. It should be consistent. So you've got consistent collection, storage, the format doesn't change. And this is always a challenge, especially if you're trying to use the publicly available data. Sometimes you add a new field and that's like throws everything off. It should be timely, of course, and this is becoming easier and easier to do with the new assessment systems. So we're getting the data in now, but it should be up to date and it has to be available. And finally, it should be accessible, and so authorized users can get to it easily. And I do think that this is a point that is maybe one of the biggest challenges that school leaders face. I know a lot of LEAs now have their own robust dashboard or assessment and analytics tools, but they're not always supported. The technical support's not always there. So I know we talked yesterday about the California Educator Resource Center, the CERS system, which is a great way to access. And of course, the state provides a lot of great training around that. But we highly recommend people become fluent in that as whether they're a teacher or a school leader, because everybody can access that. It's got a great user interface. So what do we mean by fit for purpose data? So we need to ensure that the data in our assessment system is relevant to the decisions at hand and that it's used for the purpose for which it's designed. So here are a couple of examples of that. So example one, for instance, a reading fluency assessment is designed to measure reading rate is really not appropriate for determining reading comprehension skills. You're going to need an additional assessment to make the decisions about student reading comprehension needs. Example two, a locally purchased software product offers mathematic interim assessments focused on computation, but not on mathematical reasoning. So in this instance, these interim assessment results are compared to the state summative assessment, but they don't really measure the reasoning required for the summative assessment. And if the goal is to really assess the mastery of mathematics standards and practices, the current interim assessment doesn't align with this purpose and should be replaced, right? And this is a common challenge faced. You've got something out of the box you're expected to use, doesn't always align with that. Local assessment data really can support equity when a foundation is built for this work. And you as a school leader or a district leader can support equitable outcomes for students by fostering the conditions you'll see here. So first, prioritizing equity as a central consideration. We always emphasize this. I think Joe was talking about this yesterday in terms of the context of how equity comes up. We talk a lot about equity within both our organization and for our students at the county office, but also for the districts and charter schools that we work with. Leveraging data to surface and address assumptions and implicit bias. And this is really, I think, a big part of what you'll talk about later today with Joe, the data protocols and how implicit bias can be addressed through the use of a data protocol. And we really love them for that reason. Incorporating diverse voices and perspectives. Another important reason to use a protocol is you want everybody to have a seat at the table. You want everybody's voice to be heard and you want to be somewhat leveled. So there's not these power imbalances when you're talking about data. Using disaggregated data to understand learners. And I mean, you go back just a few years and I used to work on the LCAP team here. We'd review LCAPs with our districts. And a lot of times people were not disaggregating the data. And over time, that's become just so common. And even disaggregations that are uncommon, not even just the dashboard data disaggregation, but even further disaggregation, even local disaggregation for those priority student groups within an LEA. So that's great to see, but it's important that you understand the different disaggregation levels. Maintaining an open mind to recognize and remove barriers. And then finally, using data to meaningfully engage with your educational partners. And that piece is I've had numerous experiences where you're bringing in community partners, parents, and others. And it's tempting to just tell them this is what the data means. It's very challenging to engage them with the data itself, but it can be done. And it really is important to get that perspective and to enlist them for their help, for their perspective, because that'll make it a lot more meaningful decisions. You'll have a lot more buy-in in the types of decisions you make. So I'm going to pass it off to Joe to talk about evaluating local assessment systems.
All right, thank you, Evan. Good afternoon, everybody. Joe Valero from the Office of the Fresno County Superintendent of Schools. Just like Evan said, we're going to shift over to evaluating local assessment systems, and let's start that discussion. As you may recall from session 1 yesterday, there are different components that make up an assessment system. And so these are going to include classroom assessments, such as the formative assessment process, and formal classroom assessments. Examples of that could be curriculum embedded assessments. We also have school and district assessments, such as interim or benchmark assessments. Those could include CAASPP and ELPAC interim assessments, and screening and intervention assessments, such as initial ELPAC and screeners for reading difficulties. And we also have state assessments, such as standardized summative assessments. Those could, once again, include CAASPP and ELPAC summative assessments. The purposes and uses of assessment data differ depending on the level of education system and educational partners who will be using the data. And that's what Evan was talking about right before we transitioned here. Our local assessment systems use many different assessments because no single measure can be used for every purpose. There's no such thing as a perfect assessment. We're going to need multiple assessments for a comprehensive assessment system. When all assessments in a local system are considered together, they can help provide a fuller picture of student learning and performance. Along with the different components within local assessment systems, coherent and effective systems accomplish the following. They maintain a shared vision for teaching and learning. They're intentional about improving student learning outcomes for, big key word there, all students. All students. They use multiple measures to create a fuller picture of learning. And we talked about that in the previous slide. We said no such thing as a perfect assessment. You're going to need multiple measures, multiple assessments to go over and have that full picture. Also ensure assessment tools and strategies are accessible to all learners. And we also want to draw on students' strengths, including languages, cultures, and experiences. This is one of my favorite ones. I'm sorry, I'm going to nerd out with everybody. So we can analyze and understand our own local assessment systems more clearly when we have a framework that can guide our efforts. So if you're looking for some sort of blueprint, if you need just a starting point, this resource right here from our colleagues at WestEd is absolutely amazing. So local assessment systems that are coherent and effective, they have 8 key characteristics in common. And so these characteristics are, once again, thinking about our local systems. The characteristics. These would be they're informative, they're aligned, they're comprehensive. Ooh, here's a big one. They're worthwhile, strengths-based, appropriate, relevant, and fosters agency. Each of these characteristics offers a lens through which we can evaluate and improve our own systems. And so let's take a closer look at these. So you're going to locate the article, it's inside of our Padlet, key characteristics of coherent and effective local assessment systems. It's going to be handout 2.1, once again, inside of our Padlet. And we're going to be doing some independent reading that we're going to engage in for the next few minutes. You're going to start by reading page 1 and reviewing the graphic of the 8 key characteristics on page 2. And it's going to look familiar. We were just talking about it in the previous slide. Then you're going to select one characteristic from pages 3 through 10 that applies to your local assessment system. Once again, don't think of this as something that's disconnected. Think of this through the lens of your own system. We all live in systems right now. So once again, you're going to select one characteristic from pages 3 through 10 that applies to your local assessment system. And then you're going to read about those characteristics in more detail. You're going to start reading on your own, and then in a few minutes, we're going to move over to Padlet for some reflections. So once again, just to reiterate, everything we're going to access right now is inside of the Padlet that Julie was going over at the beginning of the presentation. You're going to locate the key characteristics of coherent and effective local assessment systems. Once again, it's handout 2.1, and then you're going to do some independent reading. And so we're going to give you a few minutes for that, and then we're going to come back and we're going to reflect. Sorry, everybody, I forgot to tell you how much time we actually had. So let's take about 4 minutes. 4 minutes to go over and do that independent reading. Once again, we're looking for handout 2.1. Read page 1 review the graphic on page 2, and then select one characteristic. And then we'll answer the questions when we come back. So please, not yet. So right now you're just doing some reading. All right, I'm going to begin welcoming everybody back. Welcome back, everyone. I know there were a lot of great characteristics in there. It's probably hard to choose one, but we made you. We were being mean. All right, so let's do some reflecting on some of those key characteristics. So in a moment, we're going to drop a link to the Padlet if you didn't already have access to it. It's going to pop into the chat right now. And so what we're going to ask is that you follow the link to locate the activity called 8 Key Characteristics. In fact, you might even see on the top, I have it up right now as well, evaluating key characteristics. So you're going to see it. There's a lot of blue in there. So let me just pull back up my Zoom really quick. Apologies. Why am I having trouble here? Can everybody still hear me?
Yeah, I'm having the same issue with the Padlet. I just refreshed and it kind of.
Oh, there we go. Perfect. Wow, I got a little worried right there. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm not here. Okay, so for this activity, you will type your responses into the Padlet to the following questions. So here are our questions. What stood out to you from the vignettes for this characteristic? What is an example from your own assessment system that reflects or doesn't reflect your chosen characteristic? What questions or reflections is this raising for you about your local assessment system? And here's a big thing. Please don't forget to name the characteristic that you chose as you type your responses. So let's take a few minutes in the Padlet right now to go over and just share some of our thoughts. Remember, sharing's caring, everyone. So being able to go over, learn from each other. We're going to share those in the Padlet right now. And so you'll see the questions under evaluating key characteristics activity. Once again, what stood out to you from the vignettes for this characteristic? I love it. And I'm seeing we're naming the characteristics in here too. What's an example of from your own assessment system that reflects or doesn't reflect your chosen characteristic? And then what questions or reflections is this raising for you about your local assessment system?
I'm curious if you took yourself back to your last district level assessment, or which one resonated with you the most?
So, the one, let me pull these up right now. So, I have so many thoughts when I'm looking at these. So, the biggest one for me is aligned. So, when I was in my previous organization, we were going through that transition between Common Core and what we had previously with our previous content standards. And a lot of the times we were using assessments that were not necessarily built around the new standards, but we all know that sometimes you see a stamp on there and it's, hey, it's aligned. It's like, is it really? And so we really asked the question, why are we using this assessment? And sometimes we would hear well, we've just always used it before. So, it's that opportunity to go over. This wasn't quite around yet. In my old days, I wish this was, because it would help with a lot of those conversations. I don't know about you, Evan. What did you have when you were?
Well, yeah, and I see somebody also see comprehensive is what jumps out at me. It's that fine balance of it's the Goldilocks, right? You want to have just enough, but not too much. And I see Catalyst Crafter had dropped in which one resonated, which stood out for the vignettes was comprehensive, that the vignette described is not as effective as something good administrators do. It's tough. It's a tough one, and you end up coming in, there's a legacy, right? Whatever preceded your arrival there, and you can't throw everything out at once, but it takes a while to eventually get to that nice, balanced, aligned, comprehensive system. But, it's important to start somewhere.
I'm seeing worthwhile on here. So just a lot of different characteristics on here. Comprehensive, once again, to your point. And it's that, and I think you hit it on the head, Evan. It's that fine balance. How do you go with that Goldilocks, right? You don't want to overassess. Is there duplication? I know we were talking about duplication yesterday. Is there duplication happening within our system? Which one do we want to keep? Which one might we want to potentially move away from? But great thoughts. So informative, timely feedback to parents, to those educational partners that we work with. And so please keep it coming. Add those in there. And so we're just going to once again say it again. Sharing's caring, everyone. you're going to see some really great thoughts in here. And that's the power of the room. We're able to go in, see what others are thinking. And it's one of those, oh my gosh, didn't really consider that. So, I'm seeing another one in here, informative, really stood out. Redundant, misaligned, underutilized assessments are eliminated. And so sometimes less is more. If we have some really thoughtful, comprehensive assessment systems that we use, we might end up assessing less, but we're able to do more with the data that we have. And so, once again, great thoughts in here. Please keep it coming, everyone. I don't know if you have anything else you see, Evan, that's popping out to you.
It's one I would put this kind of as a newer concept, at least as far as assessments, is a strengths-based assessment, right? And I think even approaching it, and I will say that there's also even when we talk about data protocols, approaching your learners through through the lens of their strengths rather than starting with a deficit mindset. It really changes what you end up talking about, the conversations you have around the data, if you start with that sense of what they're capable of. I think that's such an important thing to note, and I think our EL Power person noted that.
I love it. All right. Thank you, everybody, for going over and contributing to that. Keep contributing. Keep adding your ideas. Once again, you'll always have access to this Padlet. I would encourage going back a couple of days after. I let things marinate. Usually these first thoughts are not my best thoughts, so I'll usually come back, read others' responses again. It's just one of those more learning for us. And so we're going to go back to the presentation. We're going to shift to local assessment system evaluation. And so the 8 key characteristics provide a framework for conducting thorough evaluations of our local assessment systems, and we're seeing a lot of that popping out in the responses that we had there. The framework accommodates nuances in local contexts, values, and definitions of teaching and learning. The article can be used as a starting point for a conversation about evaluating your local system. Evaluations of data systems can inform actionable steps for improvement and help leaders build coherent, effective local assessment systems. System evaluations help move beyond the sole focus on accountability and compliance. Remember, we don't want to give assessments, we want to use assessments. So once again, moving away more from that compliance side and using those local assessments. Evaluations can reveal how well assessments align with learning goals, measure student learning accurately, generate meaningful data, and the assessment and data literacy of system users. Assessment evaluations should occur regularly as part of continuous improvement, especially when local teaching and learning goals change. And there's a good example out there from the field, and it's from Santa Ana Unified. And so leaders from the Santa Ana Unified School District, they were curious to learn about school level assessment practices across their district. So they partnered with WestEd to conduct a system audit. They were particularly interested to learn the number of assessments being administered at school and how the resulting data was being used to inform instructional decision-making. The audit revealed redundancies. Probably sounds familiar to a lot of us. I know we're guilty here too sometimes. But the redundancies with several assessments serving the same purpose, and the cases where teachers were unsure how to use assessment data to inform instruction. These findings provided key insights for district leaders to inform next steps towards improvement. And the funny thing, probably saves money as well, right? You're not paying for as many assessments. So, suggestions for local leaders. You're going to want to establish a shared vision for teaching and learning by engaging with educational partners and interest holders. You're going to want to include administrators, teachers, instructional staff, such as instructional coaches and paraprofessionals, and students and their families in the process. Gather perspectives on student experiences and learning values to shape the local vision. Consider how all key characteristics apply to the assessment system, not just the one reflected on today. Develop a plan to develop the local assessment system for alignment with instructional practices and the shared vision. Implement the evaluation plan and analyze data to inform next steps. Promote assessment and data literacy among all interest holders through professional learning and engagement with student data. And then we're going to want to leverage these efforts to gather additional information supporting continuous improvement. And with that, I'm going to hand it back to Evan.
Thanks, Joe. So in this next section, we'll discuss the data use practices that leaders should keep in mind. Before we begin section 3, let's think about what other data you currently use alongside your summative assessment data to get the full picture of your student learning. And let's add to the chat. If you think, we're going to open up the chat and drop in there. What other data do you currently use alongside your summative data? All right, I see already iReady and IABs. Good to see attendance. Excellent. IEPs, attendance rates are excellent. FastBridge. Oh, that used to be a FastBridge user. That's a great assessment tool. Common informative assessments, Renaissance stars, another star, district interims. Okay, there's a, common iReady and Dibbles. One of my favorite. I had a high school principal who said, "What's a dibble?" Right? I was with him because I was coming as director of instruction, but coming from a secondary background initially. Universal Screener, Star 360. The DRDP, that's actually a tool that's used in preschools. Excellent. That's great to use all these. Oh, fantastic. Thanks for sharing your thoughts in the chat there. So as stated previously in section 1, the data generated from assessments should be used in a manner that's consistent with the intended purpose of those assessments. The data should also be relevant when applied to decisions. Summative data is not designed to provide a complete picture of student learning. And we say this all the time. We come in oftentimes to work with a district or with school leaders, and we're very oriented in our work around the dashboard. It's publicly available. So for us, it's sometimes all we can see as we're making opinions. But we want to make clear up front that the summative data, whether it's the CAASPP data, the ELPAC, or the dashboard data, is not the be-all, end-all, but it's a jumping-off point, and it's really helpful to make some high-level decisions and have some immediate thoughts on where you could focus your attention. But it is important to collect and analyze and act on different types of data or multiple measures to provide the information we need to support student learning. So multiple measures, I love this term. We use it all the time. It refers to the process of gathering information from a variety of sources for a particular purpose. And the term multiple measures is from the work of Victoria Bernhardt. And we actually regularly cite her in our workshops. She had a graphic that we use. It's like a Venn diagram, and we love it. It's a best practice to use multiple measures really in any context. And these may not be exclusively assessment data. And that's important to note. I mean, I think we saw a lot of assessments listed in there, but when you start thinking about it, what else might you use? We did see attendance as an example, but ideally student voice. I think there are some other pieces that you could start adding. They can come from data gathered at the classroom level, the school level, at the LEA level. And I know yesterday, Joe, you were talking about the different levels from street data, the book street data, which is fantastic, right? So you have the 3 different levels. And I think that's really important to consider where's your street data. So there are 4 categories of these measures. So the first is demographics, and this includes student, staff, school, and community data. Then there's student learning data, which that would be your assessment data as well, but there's other evidence of learning there too. Perceptions about the learning environment. What's going on? How do the kids feel about the learning, or the parents feel about the learning? School processes, including program strategies and practices, and this could be implementation data. How well have we implemented the following strategy? How have people been trained? When we gather appropriate data from these categories, these measures provide information that can be used to improve teaching and learning. And one measure by itself can provide useful information, but when you get a number of different measures together and they're used together over time, this can give you a much more meaningful information and viewpoint and gives us a fuller picture of the learning. What data do you use within these categories that have been helpful in making sense of summative assessment results in your context? So we're going to open the chat again. If you could write in the chat from these 4 categories, what data do you use from within these categories that you find helpful in making sense of summative assessment results? Student learning, okay. Demographics. Joe, you had a great tool that you shared our RAND meeting the other day, which was, I think, about enrollment data that is really powerful. Oh, I love it. Perception data. How are students growing in the classroom? Student perception surveys, climate surveys. Yeah, these are all fantastic.
A lot of great ones out there. And there's one that just popped up, demographics and student learning, right? Because a lot of the times we need to know who our students are, and that impacts student learning. So they go hand in hand. So love it.
Yeah, they really do. I know. I think demographic information often gets overlooked just because it's so obvious. But you can really paint that picture. And what I was alluding to was you were talking, you had this flyer that you'd shared with your districts about their enrollment data and how well received it was, right? And it's like it was packaged really nicely. It was easy to look at. And if I'm dealing with my educational partners at a school level, I think it'd be really helpful to see the demographic information for your school or for your district, for people to put the context as you're sharing out your initial summative assessment results this year, to give them some idea who's in the school and what does this represent. Well, thank you for your feedback on those questions. That's great. When considering these specific measures to include in your research, consider which information will provide a more nuanced picture of what students know and can do. These measures can look at high stakes and low stakes assessments, policies that contribute to or influence the data being collected, and evaluations of programs that learners are engaged in. Consider which data will provide the information aligned to the goal or construct being reviewed, provide more granular information about learning, identify and address inequities, support root cause analysis, which is always, it's the 5 whys, right? Keep asking why until you get back to the root cause for everything. And then identify barriers that may be contributing to the unequal outcomes. That's always the big thing. What is contributing to these unequal outcomes? So much data can be generated from the use of multiple measures, and making sense of the data can be really challenging. One approach that's important to consider is how the data can be disaggregated to provide the most useful information for local decision making. Disaggregating data accomplishes the following. It identifies opportunity gaps that may exist in our systems. That's the first and foremost. Why the dashboard is built the way it's built is to identify existing opportunity gaps and inequities that are being advanced. Guides intervention decisions so that resources are directed to where they are needed most. It promotes accountability for improved outcomes for all the student groups, and it informs educational partners and interest holders so they can be part of advocacy and improvement efforts. Like I was saying earlier, if you can enlist your educational partners, engage them with the data in a meaningful way, you'll have a lot more buy-in, and it's really a much more powerful way to get things done. So here are a few examples of data sources that you can tap into to provide a complete picture of student achievement. It's not an exhaustive list, but the examples here represent data sources that can be useful at the systems level versus the individual student level. So a little easier to gather and also gives you a bigger picture. So these include opportunity to learn measures, like that could be enrollment in AP courses, for example, student feedback, parent and guardian feedback, teacher surveys, progress monitoring tools, student work. I love student work. There's nothing more powerful than sharing. We used to always have, I don't know if you did this, Joe, we'd have every year, all our high school teachers would gather to look at student writing samples, and it was expensive. It's like a 3-day process, but man, was it powerful they could come forward with. And these are, it's a lot of time, but it also had so much buy-in. So we also look at diagnostic assessments, interim assessments. I saw a lot of people use both of those, including the IABs, and then student engagement on assessments. There's state summative assessments, of course, and course grades. We look at the DF list. It's one of the first things we look to when working with secondary schools is, can you share your DF rates with us? Because that's pretty compelling information, and it gives a lot of insights into where students are and what opportunities they're given to succeed. So we'd like to hear from you about the data sources that you use. So the question, I think it's in the chat already. Which data sources from this list do you use most often, and how? How do they enrich your understanding? So go ahead and use the chat to respond to that. Joe, what was your favorite data source that you used to love to bring into the conversation?
You know what? So you had my heart at student samples, so student work. There was, in my previous organization, we had a really large PL room, and we just, everything all around the room, and we were just doing a walkthrough of it. So nothing better than that, to your point. I agree with you. I'm seeing a lot of coming.
It's great when it can be posted too for parents and caregivers to see. I see a lot of great stuff in here. Student samples, I see diagnostic assessments, interim assessments, the student parent feedback. I love the Healthy Kids survey. Actually, they're doing something this year, an institute where they're trying to bring people together. And that, to me, when paired with assessment and achievement data, I guess, can be so telling. Like, I've found so many pieces of that data when you cross-tabulate, right? And you start to realize, oh, wow, who's achieving in the school, but then you look at the disaggregated Healthy Kids survey and who feels connected to the school and who has feels connected to an adult in the school is really powerful. A lot of feedback, and I think that's great that you're engaging with the feedback. Wow, thanks again for sharing all those in the chat with us. So we do have on the Padlet. So let's we're gonna take a look at this. So follow the link again. We're going to reflect on using multiple measures to support student learning with an activity that's in the Padlet. So the link has been dropped. So you're going to follow the link to locate handout 2.2, which features 2 brief data use scenarios. And you can find it in the Padlet. I think maybe we dropped the link in there too. So what we want you to do, and we can give you another 5 minutes for this. So choose one of the scenarios and read it on your own, and then read the questions that follow. So you're going to read a scenario and then read the questions that follow. Then choose one or more questions to respond to by typing your ideas in the Padlet. And then with any time remaining, just take a virtual gallery walk through the Padlet, adding any notes or questions to other people's comments. So let's take 5 minutes to do that right now. Okay, I just want to do a time check. We're at 2:51. We have a couple minutes. So if you haven't already read the scenarios, wrap those up and start, if you could, just adding some responses to the questions about whichever of the 2 scenarios you pick, whether it's the data summit or the learning goals. Okay, I'm going to bring it back. I do see a couple responses here. I see the first one, students meet with teacher and create individualized learning goals. It's been the most powerful in my experience because it develops agency and personalizes learning. Yes, thank you. Okay, we're starting to see some roll in here. Scenario 2, receiving data from multiple sources. I really like scenario 2. I was sharing with Joe before the start of the meeting. I had a meeting with a principal yesterday talking about how she can look at her summative data using a tool that actually was introduced yesterday. And I suggest, I really like this because you could set individual learning goals for the year. I really love this scenario because you can engage the students in that, establishing some agency of their own. What are your learning goals based on what we see in that initial, the summative data that's rolling in now around perhaps the domain level, the combination of the different domains. And that would be really powerful, I think, in engaging everyone. So, look, it's rolling in now. The data summit too, I really like the idea of engaging. This is, maybe I was a little more, given the time of year where you're about to come back during the summer. Enjoy your summer vacation first, of course. But when you do come back and you have the opportunity to meet as a team, being able to dive into that summative assessment data and make plans for the year and try to set some goals around some areas of need based on the summative feedback from this year. All right, well, as Joe said, yeah, please continue to fill this out. People do come in and look at that, and I think your insights are really valued. So, but as we move on, I just want to make sure we talk about something that came up yesterday. I know they briefly, that Joe and Tacey discussed yesterday, the Smarter Balanced ELA Math and the California Science Test Reporting Achievement Level Descriptors, or ALDs, and the labels used in the student score reports were revised in 2025. And these ALDs are also used on the test results for California or the TRCA website. And so notably, different measures use different descriptions of achievement to aid in making sense of the data. And it's important to understand how these descriptions help our data-informed decision-making. So you'll notice in the table that's here that level 4, which was previously identified as standard exceeded, is now has a new reporting label level of advanced. Then level 3 changed from standard met to proficient. Level 2 from standard nearly met to developing, and level 1 from standard not met to minimal. Additionally, the 3 ALDs for the California Spanish assessment, not pictured here, but just so you know, they're high degree, moderate degree, and limited degree. And these changes were made in an effort to improve the clarity and actionability, I think that's the right word I'm trying to use, of test results reports for families, educators, and the public. So the new and updated materials will be available to help communicate the revised ALDs to different audiences, and this will be really powerful. Among the resources you're going to find are what did the scores mean document, the next steps document, sample items and student work at various levels of proficiency. There's your student work. Your presentation slides, I would definitely want to seize those if I was a principal, school leader, to try to share what the changes mean. flyers, dialogue, guidance resources, public service announcement videos. So these are all going to be out there to help people understand these better. And these resources are going to be available on the Starting Smarter website and the CAASPP and ELPAC website, a link to which is in your resource guide. And I'm handing it back to Joe.
All right, thank you, Evan. And so we're going to pivot now to data analysis protocols. And so this is all going to support what we've been going over so far today. And so as we explore the protocols, just please keep in mind, what you know about asset-based approaches to data as we're moving forward through these. And so the other thing we just want to point out as well is all of these resources right here, I would totally just download everything right now, download this presentation and think through how might we use this? Who am I going to share this with in my organization? Because there are a ton of great tools we're about to go through right now for free for all of us. So a data analysis protocol. So a protocol is a procedure for guiding a structured conversation using specific rules that help facilitate collaboration between participants. Together, we will explore data analysis protocols and how they can be used to support data-based decision-making. There are many benefits to using protocols for data analysis. They can help us stay focused and work efficiently when analyzing data. They can also center equity through the inclusion of different perspectives. Protocols also play an important role in slowing us down, preventing us from skipping the inquiry phase and immediately jumping to solutions, or as a lot of the times we'll refer to it as solutionitis, right? We all want to jump to that. So in the following video, we're going to learn about the importance of using protocols to support data-driven decision-making. And then afterwards, we're going to have a reflection. And so we should see the presentation being minimized right now. And once again, these are all linked in. Think about who you're going to use these with. As this is getting fired up right here, who might we want to share this with in our organization?
My name is Liz City. I'm Executive Director of the Doctor of Education Leadership Program at the Harvard Graduate School of Education, where I'm also a lecturer on education. When you've collected all of your data, you're facing a large pile of data. Sometimes it's hard to know how to dive in and how to analyze those data. One of the things that I've found very helpful in my work is using protocols or structured-based conversations, especially when you're talking about data with other people, which is really the best way to talk about data, is to do it with other people. They'll see things you don't see. You'll collectively decide what to do next. But the thing is, you have very limited time in school. You may have 45 minutes for your common planning time, and you need to figure out how to efficiently use your time to look at data and get somewhere with it. So different sorts of protocols can be very helpful, even if it's as simple as we're going to start with what do you see in these data, to slow yourself down from everybody leaping to conclusions and deciding what to do about the data, which is something we educators often do. We want to do something for kids. We want to very quickly leap to something that's going to be helpful for students. So we go from data to solution in 5 minutes. Well, that's not very helpful because you've skipped the whole inquire part of the data cycle. You've skipped saying, why do the data look these way? What are we seeing here? What do you notice? So often we use protocols that start with a what do you see? What do you notice? What kinds of questions do you have as you look at these data? What other data might we want to explore to dig into these questions some? And what are our next steps based on what we're seeing in these data? So something very simple like that can be helpful for looking at data. Another thing that can be helpful is before you sit down in your collaborative team meeting with those data, if somebody has processed the data a little bit, especially if there's number data, interim or standardized test data, can you move the data from charts and numbers to try to make pictures out of the data? That will also help us be more efficient. If we're looking at a bar graph, instead of trying to look at lines and lines of numbers, can we just look at the picture to try to see, oh, what's the storyline here? Whenever you're looking at data, you're trying to figure out, what do I see? What are the patterns? What's the storyline? What are these data telling me? And now what do I want to know? So that's really a strategy for using data. It's not too fancy. You don't need fancy programs necessarily. They can be helpful, but really just sitting down with those kinds of questions can help you work through data quite efficiently. Whenever you're looking at data, you want to ask the question, why? You also want to think about using data like you're a scientist, which for those of us like myself who were English teachers doesn't come naturally. But you want to think about it like a scientist. You're presented with something, and you want to ask why. Why do the data look this way? So you might say testable hypotheses, but what you're really trying to figure out is why. So when you look at a set of data, you're going to ask the question why. A very popular protocol that comes out of the business sector is to ask why 5 times. You ask it once, why do the data look this way? And then you say, we have an answer. Why is that true? So I'll give you an example. We're struggling with students drawing inference when they're reading, a very common problem in many schools. So why are students struggling to draw inference? Well, we're not sure we're explicitly teaching inference. Okay, why? Why aren't we teaching inference? Well, we're not sure we share a common definition of what inference is. Why don't we share a common definition of what inference is? Well, we haven't really done professional development on inference. We've been really focused on comprehension, but we think inference might be different. All right, why haven't we done professional development on inference? Because we haven't allocated our time to that. And maybe if we focused on that, we could allocate our professional development time to it. So if you ask these 5 whys, you stop when you get to something actionable. A couple of other characteristics of testable hypotheses are, one, that they're testable, that you could figure out what data would I look at to try to answer this question, to see if we're right about this hypothesis.
Such a great video, and different takeaways we can get from it. And speaking of takeaways, in the chat, and once again, make sure that you share with everyone, not just hosts and panelists, but what were some of your key takeaways from the video that we just saw? What were some of your key takeaways from the video? And as we're giving people time to think through it, I know, Evan, you've been doing a lot of work out with protocols down in SoCal.
Yeah, and well, one of the things that jumped out at me, and I love, we did the data-wise and the system-wise leadership institute. She mentions pre-processing. We call it pre-digesting, but that's something I think a lot of people think, I just got to give them all the data for my teams to make sense of, and that can be really a lot, right? So it's great if you have a leadership team who can kind of dive in and look at it. But yeah, the one thing I would caution, and this, I've seen it before, is that sometimes a protocol can be used as a compliance tool. Like, did everybody fill out their protocol? Like almost like an exit ticket. And, I think all the benefits, are really important here. And it's just got to be alert to the fact that sometimes, it can be a misuse of the protocol, but otherwise, we use them all the time.
I love it. I'm seeing a lot of whys, the 5 whys. It looks like there's a lot of love for the 5 whys. And if it's new to you, don't worry. Go back, watch the video again. Remember, it's in the Padlet. You'll be able to re-access it in there. If you want to practice it, hey, practice using it with your family before you use it professionally, right? Use it with a spouse. Actually, don't. Might get you in trouble. But go on ahead and, we're seeing a lot of 5 whys. And you're seeing all these protocols sharing the data, asking the whys. Yes, asking why once again. The key word efficient came up in there. These protocols help us to be more efficient as we're working with our teams. And the other thing that popped out too, you don't have to be fancy. Nothing fancy, it doesn't have to be that way. So just once again, being mindful of thoughtfully using those protocols. So thank you everybody for going over and sharing. And let's get a little deeper into some of these protocols. We often think about how we engage teachers in data analysis, and protocols are an effective tool for teachers to use. Once again, it was that E word, right? Helping us be efficient. However, protocols can be beneficial for all interest holders. Remember to involve the appropriate educational partners in these conversations, as they have the information that is not contained anywhere else. So we want to ask ourselves, who has important information about student learning? Who is often left out of the analysis of and response to student learning data? What is needed to make room for new voices to meaningfully contribute to these conversations? And so we can take the following actions will help foster authentic educational partner engagement. And so once again, it's taking these following actions. Determine who needs to be at the table and engaged in these discussions. Provide accurate, honest, and complete data. Invite them to tell you what the data reveals to them and value their ideas. Honor input and respond with appropriate action. And support participation using structured processes and protocols. And you're saying to yourself, oh my gosh, do I even have a process? Do I even have a protocol? No worries, because in the next slide, we're going to start getting into some. So there are many data analysis protocols you could choose from, and we put together a few to share with you today. The 5 R's protocol, just like others, can be adapted to structure conversations at your site. This protocol is best used with teams of educators. So we're going to share some additional protocols that can be used by multiple educational partners and interest holders. The 5 R's though. So the 5 R's protocol proceeds in this order. Number 1, research. Analyzing student performance through the data. 2, recall. Considering learning conditions from the previous school year. Reflect. Connecting performance with practices, programs, and policies. Respond, determining next steps by centering student learning. And then review, monitoring the impact of responses implemented. This process really should be used to think about your entire system and the components that make up your system. Engaging in this process should support your understanding and improving your system in ways that produce equitable, positive learning outcomes for all students. And just a shameless plug, this one was amazing. We actually stole it and used it with our assessment network as we were getting test scores coming in last year. So Padlet, data analysis protocols. Once again, this is that whole, if it's me, I would download these, save these, because there's a ton of great resources in there. So in a moment, the link to the Padlet will be dropped into the chat for you, and you're going to follow the link to locate the protocols. So there is handout 2.3. That's the 5 R's protocol that we were just talking about up above. 2.4, the 5 Whys protocol. 2.5, that's the 1, 2, 3 reflect protocol. Handout 2.6, that's the discussion stations protocol. Handout 2.7, my final word protocol. And then handout 2.8, circle notes protocol. You're going to go over in a few minutes and be able to choose some that melt your butter and you can go deeper into. And so what we're actually going to do next is you're going to choose one of those protocols and then you're going to read it on your own. Once again, the one that melts your butter. Explain which educational partners and interest holders you can use it with in your local context and share any modifications you might make to support its use. With the time remaining, we're going to take a virtual gallery walkthrough on the Padlet, adding any notes or questions to the responses your colleagues have posted. And so for this, it's 3:10 right now. I'm looking at time. Let's take 8 minutes. Let's go with 8 minutes for this activity. So feel free, go on ahead. You're going to choose 1 or 2 protocols, and then we're going to come back together. We're going to have our responses in the Padlet. And I believe the Padlet, there we go, has just been added in. So we'll come back at 3:18. Once again, there are a ton of great resources right now that is fresh in our minds. Let's access those right now. We will see everybody back here at 3:18. 3:18. You'll see it under section 4. Don't forget to add your comment that describes how you might use it in your local context over here in this Padlet. So many great resources in here under section 4. And if you haven't had a chance yet, once again, in the Padlet, you're going to answer, it's right at the bottom. You're going to choose that protocol, read it on your own, and then add a comment to describe how you might use it in your local context. So you'll see it under section 4. Got about 2 more minutes. I think something else that might be helpful as we're going over and adding these into the Padlet, also please share which protocol you chose. That's actually going to be really interesting too, to see what everybody was landing on. Oh, this is funny. You know what? I was reading this wrong. I'm so sorry, everybody. I'm like, nobody's typing anything in. You know what? There's one on top and I see another on the bottom. Perfect. So I'm seeing a lot popping in already. We're seeing 5 R's. My final word protocol Yeah. Meeting groups of 5 and 7, trying the entire school. Yeah. Sometimes smaller groups are a little more effective, right? 1, 2, 3, wow, a lot of diversity here. 1, 2, 3 protocol, discussion stations. I'm seeing lock popping up, the 5 whys, or excuse me, yeah, the 5 whys. I don't know if you see anything different, Evan. What are you seeing on your end?
Well, I had to chime in on the discussion stations. I really like that one, and it looks like some other folks saw it too, the possibility of using it for math and also used with all stakeholders, students, families, community. I was thinking of it like a PTA meeting or, a lot of times when you're dealing with parents and there's, every year you get a lot of turnover. So you're building up that data literacy from scratch. Sometimes I used to facilitate the LCAP committees, which had a lot of parent engagement. And so you're like trying to build, but it's also a good way to get people to know one another, like build a community, and it makes the conversations, it's value added, I guess.
I love it. Yeah. Lots coming in. Keep them coming, everyone. Great ideas. I'm just checking the other one as well. The 1, 2, 3 reflect. So all of these, once again, download them, use them. Come back to this. You're going to see other people, how they might go over and infuse it, weave it, however you want to say it, into their systems. But just once again, great resources that we have at our fingertips today. We're going to come back to the presentation too. I just need to situate my screen. So we have it. Now let's make a plan. And so what we want to do now is we're going to return to the protocol that you selected and craft a simple plan for when, where, and why you might use it in your local context. So you're going to want to consider the following. What problem will the protocol shed light on? Who will you gather to use the protocol? And we've been seeing a lot of this already here. I'm pointing like you guys can see, in the Padlet, but who will you gather to use the protocol? Why is this protocol effective for this purpose and this group? And when will you put this plan into action? So you're going to be able to add your responses to the Padlet, and then we're going to come back together and share in a few moments. Just for the sake of time, because I know we are running behind, and we were already having those conversations when we would use it, who the different people were. So once again, framing that thinking, I would just encourage us to go back. Once again, we're going to have them inside of a lot of what we've been adding in already. We've even been adding them in below a lot of the different resources that we've been looking at. So, but once again, not just going over and thinking through, this is great, went over, heard a lot of different resources, but now it's really the thinking in our minds, who and when are we going to share this? When are we going to go over and use this with our different educational partners? And so I really want to just thank everybody for going over, really looking at those tools, going through those tools, sharing in that Padlet, going over and sharing out the different ways we would use it. Once again, we were already speaking to that earlier. And so I'm actually going to turn this back over to Julie.
All right. Thank you, Joe. Thank you, Evan. All right. Well, we are just wrapping up in the last few moments together today. We want to thank all of you for joining us, and especially for your thoughtful engagement in the chat and the Padlet. I always learn something from these sessions, and I love to go revisit the Padlet. As Joe is saying, there's a lot of great resources there and a lot of great thinking about how to use those resources. So I'm looking forward to diving deeper into that. And I want to make sure to thank Joe and Evan for your skillful facilitation and all of your great ideas that you shared above and beyond the presentation today. So thank you so much. For everyone else, we've just dropped the survey link in the chat for you. We also have the survey link in the first column of the Padlet in case you need to revisit that later. We're hoping that you can take just a few moments to complete that survey today. Open up that tab or even scan the QR code on your screen if that's useful to you. Your feedback is really valuable to us personally and also for this project, because we really do take it very seriously and make very clear adjustments to this leadership series each year, as well as some other offerings that WestEd and ETS and CDE provide. So we really hope that you'll take a few moments to take that survey and provide some insights into what's been useful for you, what you hope to learn more of, or new ideas that you have for us. We would love to hear about those. So we want to thank you all again. And again, thank you, Joe and Evan, for your time and expertise today. And we hope you all have a wonderful afternoon. And hopefully you'll sign up for session 3 and 4 next week to complete the data leadership series. Thank you so much.